actually started working in crypto slash blockchain Web3 back in end of 2013, 2014 during my PhD program in Singapore. I bought Bitcoin when it was like, I think less than $200.
Whoa.
A long time ago, yeah.
What's the price right now? 81,400. Yeah, I think we're going to probably see 83 very soon as well. But when you bought Bitcoin $200, Loy, when did you expect to actually see 81,000?
Vitalik and the team released the white paper and things like that, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, something is down, right? So we actually released and wrote one of the first open source security scanner for smart contract on Ethereum, and released it around 2015-ish. I actually did a research internship at Visa Research, the payment company in Mountain View.
I believe founders, a lot of them are great from 0 to 1, and then you can go from 1 to 10. But when you go from 10 to 100 or 100 to 1,000, sometimes you're not meant to be that person. Sometimes it's meant to have someone else lead it or a proper management lead it so that they can actually scale.
So at Kyber, I think we are based in Asia, Southeast Asia, right? I'm currently in Singapore.
Yeah.
I have team members based in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and Korea, a couple of other countries.
Welcome back to the Bay Show, guys, and this is Saib here, and today I'm super excited because I have here a Web3 OG, and we've covered a couple of Web3 builders, investors, CEOs, and interesting people that have been building for the past couple of years. But this one is someone that is extra special because he has been in the space way longer than any one of us have, and has a very deep understanding of this crypto and the general blockchain space as well. So without further ado, let me welcome my good friend, Loy, from Kyber Ventures.
Thanks a lot, Sahib, for having me. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here and, talk about, I guess, no agenda at all, right? Just share about Web3 in general, how to build in Web3 and, yeah.
So Loy, what's very interesting for me to have you on the show here is because I believe a lot of people here don't know that you were one of the first few OGs building in the space. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually built the first few multi-dex aggregators Kyber swap back then.
Allow me to give a, proper
please
background.
Do. My first question would be I've always heard OG. Yeah. When did you actually enter the space?
Sure. So I actually started working in crypto slash blockchain Web3 back in end of 2013, 2014 during my PhD program in Singapore, right? So I was a researcher back then and, in computer science and, all of a sudden, I think I got basically someone shared with me an article about Bitcoin back then.
Right.
And I was so intrigued, right? Because it's a new thing, right? I mean, back then I think the market cap was still 13, 14, or even less than 20 billion, right? US dollar.
Wow.
And basically I was like, okay, so from the academic perspective, is there anything for me to do with this? Because it sounds interesting, right? I mean, it's the first time ever that people, talk about decentralized money, peer-to-peer, payment system, right? I mean, back then, I think the payment system back then was not as good compared to now, right? And I think people, think about the internet money and a few other things. So from an academic kind of researcher perspective, I was because I also just started my PhD program, right? So I has all the freedom to explore whatever that I want to do. So that was a good thing about NUS, the National University of Singapore. So I was so lucky to be in that environment, and my supervisor was like, hey, just go explore and spend 6 months on it. If you don't, find anything interesting, okay, we'll figure something else, right? But if you, and I was so grateful because of that experience. So I spent the next few months, diving deeper into Bitcoin, and I think soon after that, people started talking about Ethereum. Vitalik and the team released the white paper and things like that, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, something is definitely going on, right? So I basically focused my entire PhD, thesis on Bitcoin, blockchain, how to scale up Ethereum, how to build smart contract more secure, right? We actually like released and wrote one of the first open source security scanner for smart contract on
Wow.
Ethereum,
Yeah.
and released it like around 2015-ish. I think during the DAO hack, if people were around back then, right? I mean, it was like the most like crazy hack and also eventful kind of like activity in Ethereum, right, back then. So in 2017, around the end of my PhD, I was looking around and like trying to see what should I do next, right? Because I mean, there were a few options.
Right.
One is like, hey, let's go to like industry, right? Like go to some research lab. I actually did a research internship at Visa Research,
Oh, okay.
the payment company
Yeah.
in Mountain View, and I was like I think among like a couple of like blockchain researchers that they recruited back then.
Oh, back then you saying Visa back then
Yeah,
already had
2017.
interesting. So they already kind of had a research team for blockchain.
Yeah. So,
wow.
and I think like around the world, there are not too many like blockchain researcher, right?
Right.
So I
It's too
was
early back then.
Yeah. So I was like so basically I got admitted there and like spent like a couple of months at Visa Research, but I think there was because like the pace that like we do in like the blockchain industry or in Ethereum in general, right? I think it's a lot faster than what like say the industry or any research lab can do. So I was like, if I spend like the next few years here, like, basically I think I would miss out a lot of things going out happening,
That's happening and that could
in the
happen in
industry.
the space, yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, let's just go like direct to the industry and let's just do something, right? So that's why I asked like I invited a couple of my co-founders, because basically they were like my research friend or my college friend, to work on a new startup in crypto, right? And I think that was how Kyber network happened back
Got
in
it.
2017. So we got support from like, I think many people in the industry. Like Vitalik was one of our advisors too.
Right.
And we kickstarted it back in I think around May, June in 2017, and did an ICO because back then ICO was still like the most popular way for people to raise fund.
Correct.
And I'm still happy that we did the ICO because I think it's still like the way to like launch your token, right?
ICOs back then, just for reference, guys, was literally how memes are launching on Pump Fund today.
I wouldn't say that, but
legit projects, or I would say products that actually had a proper thesis around what they were building and ways to raise funds, right?
Yes.
But I guess it was in just reference, it's the craze of how people or products or founders were raising capital back then. And interestingly, I mean, obviously there was a lot of projects that raised a lot of money that are maybe nowhere to be seen today as well.
Yeah.
And then there are products like yourself that raise money, and then you guys are still around and still building and expanding as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I think a lot of people want to bring back like ICO to this market, and I think the main reason why, I mean, we can talk about that later, but I think Kyber, I think basically like I think we started like the decentralized chains kind of like narrative back then with a few other projects, right? And I think like I think DeFi wasn't a thing back in 2017. And so we launched it in 2018, and I think to date we are still one of a few major kind of decentralized exchange aggregator, right? On Ethereum, on EVM chains. And I stepped down from Kyber like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I think mainly because I feel like basically it's a lot of like management and like growing the team and things like that, and it's not something that I want to like spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are a lot of things out there that I can still do and try to help out like different founders, like different new project, for example. So that's why I started like Caliber recently, which is basically a venture builder.
Right.
So we identify and invest in new founders before they even have like any idea of what they want to build.
Correct.
Right. And then after that, we just like work together with them, spend like 6 to 9 months with them to build their startup, and and help them like take it from there. Right.
So that's very interesting, right? You say that because I think a lot of founders, where they really mess up is, they don't accept and acknowledge their strengths and weaknesses, right? I believe founders, a lot of them are great from 0 to 1, and then you can go from 1 to 10. But when you go from 10 to 100 or 100 to 1,000, sometimes you're not meant to be that person, right? Sometimes it's meant to have someone else lead it, or a proper management lead it so that they can actually scale. Now, you're doing this with Kyber, which basically, you have that forte to identify good ideas, identify good builders, and you enjoy that 0 to 1 process in then, helping them kickstart, then bringing the resources together. So, Loy, what's super exciting for you at Kyber, right? Like, I mean, what are the few exciting things that you're building today or that has spun off from Kyber already?
Sure, but I think before answering that question, I really agree with what you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
I think like being a founder or just like being a good person, right? I think you have to be honest to yourself, right? Like you have to realize like, what you are good at,
Yeah.
what you want to do, right? What excites you, right?
Yeah.
And I think at some point you have to basically like, give up what you cannot do, right?
Right.
I think you have like to be absolutely honest
Yeah.
to yourself, to your team as well, right? Because if you just like, if it's not something that you will like excel at, right?
Then give it to the best person for
Exactly.
the job.
There's no point like
I think we need to
keep trying,
keep
right?
ego aside.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. So I think that's one of the things that I spend a lot of time with the founders as well. Basically, like help them prioritize.
Yeah.
Help them like realize, okay, you are better at this. If you are not, good at some other certain area,
Yeah.
go find a co-founder, go find a executive that can help you, right?
Correct.
I think
Absolutely.
that's the best use of your time and of your talent.
Yeah, because you technically cannot master everything anyway.
Exactly,
Right? Just get the best
exactly.
person for the job and let them do the job while you focus on something that you know that is your strength.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. So getting back to your question on Caliber,
Very
right?
keen to understand. I think you've always, from a research perspective, and then building something that's been the first, which is Kyber. I'm very interested to understand, like, what are you excited about, or what is Caliber actually looking for, given the future trends, and how are you identifying, those trends to be able to start building?
So at Caliber, okay, so I think we are based in Asia, Southeast Asia, right? I'm currently in Singapore.
Yeah.
I have team members based in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and like Korea, a couple of other countries. So naturally, we meet a lot of founders from Asia,
Yeah.
right? And I think so basically all of the founders that we have worked with so far are like, based in like, Southeast Asia, or like, Asia, like the greater Asia in general, right?
Right.
So we have like founders coming from like say Taipei, we have people like, from Hanoi and from Ho Chi Minh and from Australia and a couple of other countries, Singapore too, right? So I realized is one thing, I think we have a lot of great builders here in Asia,
Yep.
right? But I think founders here, they just don't have the good foundation, like the support network,
Yeah.
right, and also like the connection that they need to have in order like to build a successful startup.
Right.
I was super lucky because like I had the exposure between like Asia and like the greater kind of like
Outside
crypto
Asia and the Western
industry,
world, yeah.
right? So I spent like internship time in the US and like go to a lot of like US conferences back then because the school allows me to go, right? So I get that exposure and I realized that like crypto is a global kind of like
Correct.
industry.
Absolutely.
So you have to build the startup for the global kind of
Yeah.
like audience.
100%.
So if you are just based here and you don't have that like global exposure, you need to get help, right?
Yep.
So we are here to help them with that, right?
Yeah.
So that is just one aspect, right? Also like funding, also like how to get access to talents, how to like get like the right partners like, to help them like grow and like scale and all of that, right? I think there are a lot of things that they have to do in order like to optimize for the potential success of the project, right? So we basically like just spend a lot of time with the founders, even before we invest in them, right? Like we are like, hey, let's just come and chat, like we spend say like a month, like every week we have a couple of like catch up and calls and stuff, discuss like different ideas, brainstorm different ideas. analyze the founders too and see like whether they are actually, what's their strength, what's their weakness, right? Like who do they need help with to in order like to, to compensate for their weakness, right? And I think the outcome of that 1 month is one, okay, is it someone that we can build with like over the next like 6 or 9
Do
months?
they have what it takes to actually take,
And two, like, who else do we need to bring in, right?
to fill the gaps?
Yeah, and three, hopefully, is like, what is it that we are building, right?
Right.
So I think that is quite, we have tried that with like, I think more than like 30 different like founders. And so far I think we have finalized like 4 different founders.
Across
different founding teams.
Across how many months are we talking about these different people, that cohorts that you've tried with, that you've come down to this final number of 4?
I would say like more than, so we started like Kyber around July-ish last year, right? So it's like 16, 17 months so
to get
far.
that final 4 teams or 4 founders that you think you can put your bets behind, help build with, and make it the next big thing in the space.
Exactly. I mean, I think my philosophy is also that we don't need like a lot of project in order like to succeed in this venture building business.
Right.
I mean, I think it's different from the venture investment, right? Venture investment, you naturally have like to spread your risks, right?
Correct.
Like you have to invest in like say 100 different like projects, and hopefully like 5 of them will succeed.
Right.
But here, I mean, because like we optimize for the potential success of the project so well already, right?
Yeah.
Like we spend like a lot of time before we actually make a decision, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the success rate is a lot higher.
Agreed.
And secondly, because like we also spend a lot of time with the project, with the founders, before after we invest and we decided to work with them, right? So we can also like help them improve the success rate too. So that's my bet is that like out of the 4, at least like 1 or 2 will be able like to like reach to some level of like significant success. And we only and that would be like a lot higher compared to like say venture investments and other kind of like investment.
Absolutely, I agree. Because
model.
you're right. I think venture investments, it's a lot of spray and pray, right? You 5 out of 100 that actually give you that 100x returns.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are in control of what you're building and can influence the outcome to a certain extent, it's very I think makes sense with how you're putting it off, bringing out the 4 best out of 30. It's interesting though. I was actually about to ask you this question, about Asia in general, right? And Asian builders, right? Because I guess one big question that I have is, if you look at the top 500 projects in crypto today, I would still say Asian builders out there are significantly lower than the rest of these, I say global IPs that have been built in the past, right? When do we see that changing, right? And perhaps to follow up that question as well, is why do you think we don't have, let me rephrase that, right? So in the past, we have seen a lot of these top IPs that are built by global brands, right? Why hasn't Asia been up there? What are we lacking?
Right. So I think this question has been asked by a lot of people, right? And I think it boils down to a few major points. One thing for sure, I don't think Asia lacked talent, right? Like we actually have a lot of builders.
Agreed.
We have a lot of engineers too, right? Like from India, from like Vietnam, from like China, and like Malaysia and many other countries, right? I think what we lack is it's a complete ecosystem that can help founders, that can help like builders, like realize their ideas into a successful startup, and to grow the startup like to the like bigger stage, right? Let me put you an example, right? Like, I think if you notice, like the recent kind of like narratives in crypto, I think mostly was created and driven by the US founders or like the Western-based founders. Like risk-taking, for example, right? I think like all the risk-taking project are basically like, like Eigenlayer and like Babylon and a few others, right?
Yep.
Most of them are started by the US founders, right? Why? I think one, doing this sort of new narrative require a lot of communication, require a lot of like education, and require a big like approval from the VCs,
Right.
right? Like, if they raise 100 million, 200 million for their project and sell that as a new narrative, a lot of people will follow for sure. I think that is something that we don't have in Asia.
Yep.
We are not very good at like communication because I think a lot of the communication in crypto is happening in English
Yep.
and in Twitter, right? In like all the social network that I think it's very natural for the US founders or for the Western founders
To be able to unlock that
Exactly.
that particular skill.
We don't have like big funds like Paradigm, A16Z, and then many others, right? That could like throw a check size
big
of like
check
100
size.
million, 200 million, and to say that okay, this is the new narrative that we are betting on, right? I think Asia we don't have that size of the fund, right? That fund of that size.
Yeah.
So naturally, I feel like like it's a lot harder for like Asian-based founders to create something new, right? Like to
Right.
create a new narrative. I mean, we successfully did that like a couple of times in the past, right? Like we had like GameFi were basically started like from Asia with like Axie Infinity,
correct.
right? And we had like I think even like some of the DeFi project now also like started from Asia.
Yeah.
Mainly because like I think DeFi is already proven. Like people don't need to sell DeFi anymore.
Correct.
It's just that like what else can you build in DeFi, right?
To
So
bring
we have
some
like
new innovation.
yeah, I mean like we have like all the new successful DeFi project are built by Asian founders, right?
Right.
Like recently we had like Pando, we had like Jupiter,
Yeah.
we had like Trip, right, on Solana.
Correct.
But back then when we did it, I think in 2017 it was very hard to sell.
Yeah.
Because like people were like is decentralized chains going to be the next thing?
Yeah.
I mean luckily we had a couple of other projects that were building decentralized chains back then as well. So it was like a joint collective kind of like effort, right, in terms of like educating the market, training the ecosystem.
I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right because, I believe that, again, like you said, talent is not an issue here, because a lot of what we are seeing is that the West is actually hiring the East, right? So I mean, you've been having access and even backing like the best of dev houses in Vietnam, so you can probably tell how a lot of these devs have been actually behind the scenes in building the global products out there anyway, right? But I agree with you that communication or just getting out there, and then obviously the infrastructure which comes with funding and connections is a massive, I'd say, gap that we have been facing. Even though I would say like, we have massive liquidity from China or from family offices here in Singapore, there's still that lack of conviction that back a Asian founder, just because I think it's a general consensus where they feel that the West innovate and the Asia follow and do it better, right? So I guess this is also one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on the show to have this very casual conversation, because I personally believe, guys, that Law is, poised or has always been that early builder and very easily a prominent thought leader of Asia, right? Because I think we need people like you to highlight the importance of how we Asians can actually be the forefront of the next wave to come, right? But super excited, man. I think from the four teams of founders that you have identified, I bet, or at least I can hope to bet that that's going to be at least the top 100 market cap company within the next 3 years.
That's our wish too. And I think like a lot of them are actually solving really hard problems, right? Like this, for example.
Any teasers on like anything that we can be excited about, or a narrative that you're very bullish on?
Sure. I mean, like I think, for example, we have one team that is building like the new high performance layer 2, right? Like they're like building a really hard problem, right? Like they have like to rewrite the Ethereum layer 2 clients, rewrite the database system in a, to support like say parallel EVM execution.
Yep.
The team is basically based, founders is Australian, Vietnamese, and American, right? So they have the right kind of like mix, right? And they have like the right experience as well.
Right.
So the name is Rise, RISE.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is just one of the four.
Right.
I can give you like another one that is building, I would say, a decentralized liquid staking for Bitcoin.
Okay.
Right. I think there are a lot of there are several like Bitcoin layer 2, Bitcoin liquid staking project where I think they all take the shortcut, right? Like they actually don't handle the problem like heads on, right? So what they do is like they basically just take your Bitcoin, put it into some like custodian like
Right.
Kobo and like some others, right? And issues like a corresponding like restaking token. But this guy, they're like we're not taking that shortcut, right? Like we want to make it like super decentralized, so that there's no like centralized kind of like failures, point of failure.
Got it.
So the name is Atlas. So they built it with Near Foundation and
Right.
the Near chain, right? To actually like put the basically people can send their Bitcoin into a into an MPC Power wallet that will be like managed by a large decentralized network, and from there was just like issues like corresponding like liquid staking
I
token.
actually met the team yesterday.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, they're all like talented founders, and they just need like to have the right
The
support.
right ingredients to
Exactly.
help bring that to life and
Exactly.
expand.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, like for example, teams like that that have the capability.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from like hard problems.
Yeah.
I think like with the right support, they will be able like, to shine, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Loy, what a time to be alive right now. We are hitting all-time highs every day, right? I think, I don't want to talk too much about price action, but what was your first crypto? What was your first purchase?
I think I bought Bitcoin when it was like I think less than $200.
Whoa.
A long time ago, yeah.
You can tell. That's OG. That's OG.
2013.
What's the price right now? 81,400. Yeah, I think we're going to probably see 83 very soon as well. But when you bought Bitcoin $200, Loy, when did you expect to actually see 81,000?
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, like back then I was a student, right? I just wanted to experiment
Yep.
with this new thing, right? And I actually didn't invest on anything else before that.
Right.
Right. So Bitcoin was my first investment, and soon after that it was Ethereum, right?
What was Ethereum? You bought it at ICO?
Yeah, no, I didn't buy it during the ICO, right? I think I missed it somehow.
But single digit or double digit max?
I bought it less than a dollar, right? But okay, so no, I mean I was a student back then.
Yeah.
I basically like exit a bit early.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Because like if I was if you
That was
were a
already a big
student,
win. That was already a big
if
win.
you were a student and you made like a few thousand $US,
That's
you
a
are
big
like
win.
this is a lot of money. This is like life changing money,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So it was very hard like to
Huddle.
to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was fun. I think it taught me a lot of a lesson about investing and also and I think like it keep the interest aligned as well.
Right.
Like I basically like okay, I really want to start it, like to learn more about this and
Right.
to work on it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I think a lot of those people, investors that stumbled upon crypto back in the days, and I believe most of the ones that actually got in early were people like yourself that stumbled upon it, either through research or a friend who was in the more of a research mode, actually kind of found it interesting and shared that alpha back then, right? And it wasn't kind of like alpha, but it was like, hey guys, this might be the next big thing. But I think no one would have imagined it to have blown up to this extent, and that's why it is super exciting for me to ask someone like yourself, did you ever dream of imagining 81,000 this soon? You're saying 2013. We're just 11 years away, forward from that $200 mark, and we talk about TradFi. And you talk about stocks reaching that kind of returns. it takes years, or maybe a lot of stocks have not even reached that stage, after like 50 years of being around, for instance, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, like, I don't monitor the price that much,
Yeah.
to be honest, and I don't celebrate like that much when the price like hits like all-time high, or like.
This is what a true builder
So
says.
I think I got inspired a lot by Vitalik, right? So because like I think back in 2014, 2015, he spent like some time in Singapore.
Yeah.
And I was like helping him and discuss with him like on a couple of like research kind of like question and stuff. I think I still remember like when we were going out for lunch and like Ether reached like $100, right?
Right.
I think it was the first time that it reached like $100, and we were like having like hawker food in Singapore, like it's like $4-5.
Right.
And I was like, Vitalik, congratulations, like price is so high now and all-time high and stuff. And Vitalik was like, yay, let's get back to lunch. I was like, wow, you don't celebrate? And he's like, I mean, I have enough of Ethereum and I'm happy if the price goes up, but like I think longer term.
I'm here for the impact.
Exactly.
For the actual technology, and I agree. I mean, it's very classic of true builders like yourself, rather than traders or investors like us, where we rejoice over these actions. But over time, you start realizing, when you are actually building in the space, that these are milestones just to rejoice and be happy because you've been around in the bear. But you actually know in reality how this is just really the beginning, right? But talking about Vitalik, talking about ETH, and Loy, I know you're you're an evangelist of ETH as well, right? Let me put it that way. And how much, as much as hate we can see on ETH, like Bitcoin's crushing at 83,000, right? Or 81,000. And it's not even close to all-time high. Although, to be fair, we've seen, a massive green candles in the past couple of days. But I just want to understand that conviction of building on ETH, right? I want to dig deeper of your analogy or thesis behind ETH. I'm still bullish on ETH, by the way. It still has the biggest TVL unless we don't see that even more than 50% of that liquidity moving around in other L1s or L2s. I still believe that ETH holds that entire dominance. But I want to understand from a builder perspective who's been building, bought it since under one, building on ETH. You've touched on DeFi. You've actually built the DEX aggregator as well. So shine some light upon why someone that is new in the space or still building in the space should be bullish on ETH.
Let me put it this way, right? I'm actually giving a talk later today, like about why Ethereum is more relevant today.
I'm front running them.
Yeah, and but I think like this is what I've been like sharing with people, right? Like I couldn't bet on that Ethereum is outperforming other new China coin in terms of price action.
Okay.
But I could bet that Ethereum is still around in the next decade.
Right. Yep.
So if I want to like bet on something that will last like for decades,
Yep.
I could bet on Ethereum.
Very good point,
Right.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you want to make money, maybe betting on other coins might be better. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well said. But I say, Loy, so big question here is, what are the new innovations that are happening on ETH?
Right. So, okay, back to the fundamental question, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are a few things that I think is still very hard for like older Ethereum killers can achieve. I mean, they might be able to achieve, but it's going to take a lot longer time, right? And I think a lot of them don't have the foundation that Ethereum is having
Right.
to get to where Ethereum is today, right? So this one example is how decentralization maximalist Ethereum is, right? Like I think today Ethereum has like more than 1 million kind of validators.
Right.
It's like I think like 1,000 times higher than any other like Ethereum killer out there, right? The second part is I think even with that number, like the foundation is still trying to lower down the barrier of entry for new validators. Like currently it's like 32 like Ethereum in order like to run a validator node,
Right.
but they're trying to lower it down to 1 Ether, right? And two, like I think they want to even like reduce the hardware requirement,
Yeah.
right? For anyone to be able like, to participate in to the network and check like transaction on the network and things like that. So I think that pure kind of like decentralization focus
Right.
is something that I don't think like the new Ethereum killers can have. And that is something that is super important for any layer one blockchain. If you want to sustain like, adversarial like kind of like attack, like nation state kind of like attack, right?
Yep.
And two, I think Ethereum has I think the ethos of the people that are building on Ethereum or the people at like Ethereum Foundation.
Yep.
They are maximalists in like maintaining like credible neutral, right?
Right.
So why is it important? Because end of the day, you need like to build, like Ethereum is considered a public good now.
Yeah.
Like you have to have that like, neutral credibility, right? In order to make it like, sustain for a long time, right?
Yeah.
If you look into like say Solana ecosystem,
Yeah.
or like even newer like ecosystem like Sui and Aptos, a lot of them are celebrating around meme and like making money and
Right.
things like that,
Right.
right? Ethereum, like you don't see that vibe from Ethereum Foundation or like from the Ethereum community,
Yeah.
right? Like you see people celebrate when like a hard fork happens, right?
Yeah.
Or like when the new release happens, right?
Anything that actually has to do with innovation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that's not to say that like Ethereum community doesn't care about like
Price
making
action
money,
or, yeah,
price
yeah,
action and
yeah.
stuff. I think a lot of the new layer tools they care about that, right?
Right.
A lot of the new layer tools they promote like meme action, they promote like meme platforms.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, that doesn't mean that like the entire Ethereum community need to do that, right? But I mean, like I think if you look into say all the criticism on Ethereum Foundation,
Yeah.
on like say how some of the researchers are advising like to eigenlayer and like why there's no like why Ethereum Foundation keep like selling ETH and stuff.
Yeah.
You would be surprised because like you don't see that kind of question, right? You don't see that kind of like scrutiny check on different foundation, on other like blockchain foundation,
Right.
right? Like Solana founders Anatoly, he's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
But like he invests and he advised like a bunch of other startup on Solana. No one asked a question
Yeah.
because yeah.
You
like,
feel
like,
like
like, like
you're-
you see the contrast, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct, 100%, 100%. And you bring up a very good point, because I'm just curious to also understand and dig deeper from a founder, but also from a research perspective who has been around in the space, from a founder that's building utilities and backing real innovation. What are your thoughts on memes? Is it good or bad for the industry that we're seeing today, right? There's so much, I'd say, debate out there that memes are the way or Trojan horse to bring the retail inside, or let's say mass adoption, right? And we talk about utility or VC-backed tokens that are ultra trash, for instance, right? So I want to understand, what are your thoughts behind memes, and how has it impacted, let's say, utility tokens?
Interesting question, and I think a lot of people have a different view on this, right? For me personally, I view like meme as another kind of like entertainment, another like
Gamble.
I couldn't say gamble, but a lot of people view it as gamble, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because like some of the memes, they actually have like culture. They actually have like a way to build their own community, a way like to like rally things together, right? I mean, that's what like people like internet people want, right?
Right.
They want something that they can build together. They can see the success
Yeah.
together, right? Without like anyone knowing anyone, right? But it's more like showing that, hey, if a group of people working together, they can achieve something like really like spectacular, right? So I think for some meme is working like that. It's
Yeah.
like it's like showing that there's a part of the internet that really want to see like Doge like from succeeding, right?
Right.
There's a part of the internet that like really think that Shiba Inu is the new thing, and that it should become like the meme of the internet.
Yeah.
But of course, like there's also like a group of like internet users that just want to bet on what could be the next Doge, what could be the next like Shiba Inu,
Yeah.
and they just like go on pump.fun and just try like every new meme coin, right? I think to some level of like what you said, like I think it can be used as a good tool for people like to try out like internet asset, right? To like get their first exposure and like to really like try it out basically.
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't care like spending like $5 or $10 on this lottery ticket,
Yeah.
right? And if they make it, great. But
Great.
like if they lose, it's okay.
Yeah.
But like at least they try out the like decentralized wallet. They try out like interacting with like smart contract
Yeah.
and things like that, right? So it's a good like user acquisition kind of tool, right? But also at the same time, you also brought up the concern like, is it a detraction? Like, is it like really like sucking away like liquidity
From like
attention from the
core
real
innovation,
project?
technology.
I would say if it's what the people want, if memes is what the users want, then why fight against it, right? Why fight against it, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you like build like supporting products to
Yeah.
make it a lot easier for people to get access to new memes and like to trade memes or to even like exit and like manage their meme coins, right? So yeah, I mean, but like whether it's gonna like like badly affect like other real project, I don't think so. End of the day, I mean, you have to build for what the user want, right? If meme is what user want, build something related to meme, right?
Right.
If you think that DeFi is the next thing, it's the big thing, right? And you think everyone should like use DeFi, right? Then build something on DeFi, right? It doesn't matter like I mean like you might have like some certain ideas of like this should be the thing that everyone should use, but if end of the day if no one is using it, then what's the point of building it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that the founders also have like to constantly like evaluating as well.
Yeah.
Like okay, this is great, but like whether this is what the market wants,
Great
this is what
points.
the user wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair analysis. I think that's a very good point. Loy, I know you're a DeFi maxi, and I think this space, or for anyone that follows Loy on Twitter, I will let you go and read all his blog posts and everything else that he shares. So I'm not going to dig deep into that. Give us this last few nuggets. I just want to dig deep on what are the 3 or maybe more narratives or industries that you are bullish on for the next 3 years.
In DeFi.
No, outside DeFi.
Oh, outside of DeFi.
Because you're a DeFi maxi, that's number 1. We know that. No argument, understood. Okay. What's like the next, second, third, or like fourth big, narrative that you're bullish on? Either you're building, you're investing, or you just, as a spectator, very keen to see how it develops.
I could say the wallet is playing an important role.
Okay.
For user acquisition, for product distribution. I would like to see more wallet to be successful. I mean, recently there was like a project in Phoenix, right? I think that really like changed like how UI UX should be done for crypto. But I think a lot more other projects are doing a lot better too.
Right.
So I'm still bullish on like the futures of crypto wallet.
Right.
Given that there are a lot important problems that wallets can help like abstract away for users.
Right.
Like this, for example, like all the interop between different layer 2s, different chain. I think on the wallet you can certainly abstract it away. Right.
Agreed. I think it's an interesting problem to tackle for sure.
And also like end of the day, like if you build new protocols, how do you distribute it to the end users? I mean, currently people like have their own website and people have to go there. But eventually, you should like have it available on the wallet. So that's why even like for Kyber, I still sync up with the team a lot, and I think a lot of the volumes and a lot of the traffic is actually coming from the wallets that integrate with like Kyber aggregator API,
Right.
like MetaMask and like Rappi and all this wallet.
Yeah.
So I think eventually all the like wallet will become like the distribution for all the crypto products.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So wallet is one. More consumer products. More consumer products. Right. I think this, for example, Pump.Fund is I think is quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's basically I mean it's not like crazy new idea, but like the way that they roll it
The
out to the
mechanic
market,
and- yeah.
the way they attract the users is good, right? I mean it creates the hype. It creates like the
Ease of just interacting.
yeah. I think and the revenue that I'm making over the last like 7-8 months is like almost 200 million. That's
Yeah,
like
it's
crazy,
insane,
right? So I would say if we can create like more of such products,
Yeah.
Make it easy for users, make it attractive for the users,
Yeah.
make them like want to come back and try every day.
Yeah.
Okay, the third one, hard to tell, but I still feel like gaming need to be back, right?
Right.
And I think currently we are seeing a few trends.
Yeah.
One is all the games, all the mini apps on Telegram.
Yeah.
That also like try to build some social games.
Yeah.
I see some traction there, but not to the like critical mass yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully like that they can improve and actually build like real like social games and launching on Telegram. And another thing is that like I think from the last GameFi cycle, a few like big gaming project also raised like a massive amount of money, and they like spend the last like 3-4 years like building games.
Building
right?
games, yeah.
So hopefully like in the next year or two, there
We
will be
see
like
that
crazy
sort of excitement, but also I'd say use cases that brings back that life in gaming. Because
Yeah.
it's I'd say almost at the bottom right now.
yeah.
Rock bottom. Well, Loy, I genuinely enjoyed this conversation a lot with you, and I know we could keep going on, and there's so much to dig from you, but like I said, it's so interesting to learn from you, learn from your perspective, because you've been around in the space. You are that respectable builder, but also the thought leader within the community in Asia. And I believe that outside Asia has to see the thought process that you have behind you as well. Very excited to see what Caliber is going to spin out. The two projects you've mentioned, well, I'll give that a follow, guys. Please do follow them as well. We'll put some links. But everything else that you guys are backing or even just building, very excited to see that unfold. I'm not going to take too much of your time because I know you've got pretty much the same topics you're going to be asked upon because you people know you're the expert. You're the expert on this. So Lloyd, thanks so much for coming on. And if there's anything else, guys, you can always follow him on Twitter. I'll put the link as well. But I hope you genuinely enjoyed the show as well.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been
Thank
great.
you, Lloyd.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Until next episode. Cheers.